What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. This is day five of quarantine, and so far I'm doing okay. Hi, Autumn. As you guys are dropping in, I would love to hear about how your guys' social distancing or quarantining is going. Hi, Scott. Hi, Michael. Hi, Chris. Yeah, as you guys are coming in, I would love to hear how your guys' social distancing or quarantining is going. Are you guys happy? Are you upset? Are you scared? Are you mad? Hi, Taylor Brown. Are you doing fine? I feel like you worked, Autumn, you worked 50 hours this week? That's a lot. Where do you work? Dang. Yeah, I would love to hear how it's going for you guys. For me, it's going pretty good, but I think it's just that I like to be home alone, so it's been nice. Hi, Chris Hamlin. Hi, Jess. Anyway, so Chick-fil-A, people need the Lord's chicken. Katie Gosla left the house today to wait in line at Sam's Club for TP. Nice. Scott and Michael worked out in their apartment, and their downstairs neighbors may hate them. What's up, Chris? Everyone's just kind of sharing how their quarantine's going, or social distancing. After yesterday with Dr. Scott, I feel very convicted that I pretty much should never leave my home unless I have to once I'm done quarantining. So, if you guys didn't get to catch all that really great info from him, I'll put it on the internet somewhere later, and you'll be able to see it. Okay, so this is I don't know what this is. This is Quarantine with Christine. Mostly I've just been talking with different people about COVID-19. Taylor Brown, you're a rock star. Let's be honest. And for me, I don't know if you guys like this. If you don't like it, I'm super sorry. You don't have to watch it. But I like this, not because my face is on the screen, but because I've been learning so much. It's been so cool getting to talk to so many different people. And if this is one of the first times you're tuning in, or maybe you have no idea what's going on right now, that's okay. My hope for this is really that we would all learn together, we would laugh together, we would lift each other up. So the point of this is not just for me to have a conversation with someone, but for you guys to join in on the conversation. So whether that's commentary, whether that's a follow-up question, whatever that is, interacting with each other, please feel free. Tonight, I'm very excited about who I get to talk with. His name is Dr. Michael, and he is the only one that I don't personally know that I'm talking with so far, but I'm going to ask him to join, and I'm very excited. So hopefully he hops on here. I think Dr. Michael... Hello, Dr. Michael!
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. I think you should definitely trademark Quarantine with Christine. That's really good.
Because it rhymes?
I love it, yeah.
That's very kind. I really appreciate that. So, Dr. Michael, you're the only person that I'm talking with so far on here that I don't personally know.
Yeah.
So I felt like I wanted to start with, this is like for real, me just getting to know you.
Okay.
And now all of my friends that are on here are going to get to know you. And then look at all your friends that are joining. They already know you. But I'm sure they'll enjoy knowing more about you. So, tell us what you do and where you're from.
Well, I'm from kind of all over. I was born and raised in Ohio, and then spent a lot of years in California. I went to college there and graduate school in New York, in the city there, and then spent some time in San Francisco. And now I'm in Denver, Colorado, very happily, where it's beautiful. And in times like this, when we can still go outside, at least, like we've got plenty of beautiful places to go, which I'm really, really, really grateful for, especially right now. And what do? I'm a counseling psychologist. I have studied psychology ever since college, psychology at Berkeley, psychology at NYU, have my PhD there, and I loved getting to study about like people, like everything in psychology, right? Like why your supermarket is laid out the way that it is psychology, right? Like why we pick who we pick to be friends with and who we fall in love with is psychology. It all is, right? And so I kind of like that because I think it's something that no matter what, even like the smartest, most studied people in this field will always be learning. I think that's kind of cool, Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I've never thought that the layout of a supermarket is psychology, and now I know that I'm going to be learning a lot in this conversation. I'm stoked. So, like, what was your PhD in? Just asking.
Sure. Yeah, I have a PhD in counseling psychology, and then my postdoc was a
Okay, and was
specialty
your
in.
undergrad in?
Yeah, my undergrad was also in psychology as well. Yeah, I kind of knew what I
Okay,
wanted. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. What was your specialty in?
I have a postdoc in eating disorders and body concerns, which I think is also something that's
Okay.
so this permeates the culture, right? Like a lot of us are thinking about,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
we present, what we put in our bodies, and and how all that means, what all that means, and things like that. So yeah, definitely. That was also a
That
really, really interesting year.
that's so cool. Well,
Yeah.
okay, so here's some other questions. I want to know more about you. If you had to pick one animal to describe as your spirit animal, what would it be?
Oh, definitely the tiger. I love the tiger. The tiger is like this, like it's so strong and so like, but like doesn't have like all of, like the cachet of the lion, right? Like the king of the jungle, or whatever. The tiger is sort of
Okay,
this, you think of the tiger as like a second fiddle, but then the tiger will own you in the end, And I, I kind of feel like that's sort of my
okay.
spirit animal for sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm
That's a really
I-
good answer. Mine's probably a
I'm.
blobfish. So,
Ooh, why?
um, I'll send you my baby picture later, so you can know. I literally
Okay.
looked like a blobfish as a child, so
Okay. Great.
it's
Yeah.
fine. Okay,
I think I speak for
here's
all
another
of your
question. Oh, go
followers
ahead.
here when I say that we all want to see the baby pictures tonight. Put on your story, please. We want to see it.
Okay, that's hateful. That felt like a personal attack, Michael.
No, I want it.
Um,
We want to see the cheeks.
okay, I'll do a comparison post in a
Great,
bit. Okay,
great.
so this is a question that my sister asked us on the holidays a couple years ago, and
Hmm.
it's like forever ruined me. And I do feel like anytime anyone answers it, you learn a lot about who they are. Um,
Okay.
so the question is, what is the lowest amount of money someone could pay you to eat a deli slice of raw chicken?
Raw, as in like I'm gonna get salmonella poisoning.
Well, you don't know if you will.
The lowest amount.
The lowest amount of money someone could pay you to eat a deli slice of raw chicken.
I do it for 200.
You would do it for 200?
Why not? Just to see. Yeah, I do it. Sure.
No way!
Yeah. 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 I would.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
legit. What would the rest of you guys do it for? I love seeing the difference of like the lowest amount. Oh, Scott does not approve.
Yeah, it's
Scott,
okay.
how much would I have to pay you? The lowest
Seguin
amount
is
someone
here.
could pay you.
Seguin, I want to know how much Seguin would charge to eat a deli slice of uncooked chicken. Seguin, please tell me.
Brooke, $1 million. Scott, I said $1 million, and my sister made fun of me. And she said 1,000.
Wow.
But like the point is to press it when you ask this question. Like, so you wouldn't eat it if someone gave you $999,000?
Right. Yeah. I would probably do it for 150.
150? No way! What?
Yeah. I grew up very working class, Christine. I know the
Well,
value
yeah,
of a dollar.
I'm from an immigrant family. I was just thinking, okay, at the time that I answered the question, to be fair, I was unemployed and I didn't have health
Mhm.
insurance, and I was
Yeah.
over 26. So I was like, if I eat it and then something horrifically goes wrong, I
Yeah.
need to be able to pay off the medical bills and like have some cash in my pocket. You know, I was
Yeah.
scared.
That's fair. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, look at all these different answers. 10 grand from Chris, 5K. But you're the lowest bidder so far, 115. That's amazing. Okay, let's get into these questions because people have a lot and they're all
Yeah.
kind of intense. So
Let's do it. Let's talk
I'm
about
really
it.
excited. Okay, so let's just start with this. Can you explain the psychology behind group panic?
Oh, sure. I mean, look, about group anything, right? Group, just group mindset in general, group think, right? When everybody says that we're all doing great and, USA #1, then everybody starts putting American flags outside of outside of their apartments or homes or whatnot, and everybody has the same like idea about everything. When everybody says it's the end of the world, sort of the same thing. It turns into a horror movie. So I mean, this is, a lot of times we are basically an average of the people who are closest to us, right? You're basically an average of sort of like probably your parents and like your 3 or 4 or 5 best friends. And then, then you can kind of extend that to your community, right? If you live in the Pacific Northwest, very different vibe from say like Los Angeles. You live in Denver, probably a very different vibe than like Manhattan, right? So you're kind of like, you kind of are an average of all those influences. So if everybody is around you is panicking, or at least even like a heavy handful of them, they're reading the news in a certain way, there becomes like this thing where if you're going to the supermarket to get 30, gallons of milk and 600 rolls of toilet paper, right? Then I have to too. And it's sort of like this, like we all see everybody around us as sort of like as our, not just our community members, but really as sort of like educators on what to think and how to be, right?
Is that like neurobiological? I
think there's some neuro in there for sure. I think there's almost everything's neurobiological for sure, and also like which is probably going to be the answer to a lot of these questions tonight. Is like there's a lot of evolutionary psychology coming out too, right? Stay alive, take care of your own, hunter-gatherer, all that sort of stuff. Come up like how do we? I mean, you can even see it with some of the things that they're doing in different countries where they're choosing different people to spend a ventilator on, right? So it's like, oh, well, this person is under a certain age and might live longer, and so we want them to be around. This is just evolutionary psychology coming out in the medicine field, in the medical field, and politics, and all of it, right? And the way we're treating each other, for sure, right?
So you would say that it is like the groupthink mentality that's leading to all that panic buying, like even all the. Like someone asked, like why are stores out of everything, including some items that seem to be unnecessary for COVID,
Right. Well, it's right. There's something. It's different now too, and of course, every era is different. But it's very specific now to the idea that probably when you and I were growing up, people would say something in the neighborhood, right? Or somebody would call your mom and say, "I heard they're running out of toilet paper or whatnot." Oh, I heard that's one thing. It's a whole other thing to have 24-hour news, to have 24 hours social media, and there's every single person has all the information and it's spread out, and the narrators aren't always just like, sort of like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, where the narrator's like, oh my God, they're on toilet paper, everybody freak out. So it's like that kind of, that kind of a caption, with all this, I think is kind of sort of begging for panic, right? Yeah. So even things when aren't, sort of, quote unquote related to COVID. I mean, at this point, I think the narrative is that everything's going to be related to it, because when COVID means shutdown, COVID means no more distribution possibly. COVID means we can't leave our houses maybe for a day, 3 days, a week. We don't know what that's going to be. We're seeing what's happening in other countries. So in that case, as weird as it sounds, toilet paper has everything to do with COVID, right? Because anything that you use on a daily basis and you might not be able to get a hold of, have Amazon deliver it to you in 2 days, or go to the corner store and go get it, man, that has a lot to do with it, right?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. I have to think more about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Also, so Dr. Tom SF just joined in. Dr. Tom SF is 10 times the psychologist I am. So anything that I say, Dr. Tom SF will fact check it. Hopefully, just throwing that out there. Just Dr. Tom. He's brilliant clinician in San Francisco in private practice and at Stanford. And so please, Tom, chime in. He's wonderful. Go ahead.
Yeah, for real. All of anybody that's in there, especially if you really know what you're talking about, like Dr. Tom, I would love to. I think everyone in this room would love to hear from you and learn from you. Yep. So, and again, everybody else as you're joining in, if you have questions for Dr. Michael, please drop them in. Like I'm asking questions that people wrote in earlier, but if you have current questions or questions that come up, please just write them down. Okay, if we can swing to the other side. So like there are people that are obviously panicking, and then I feel like every day I see at least like one post or like a couple usually that's like, what's the big deal? Like, there's not a problem. Like,
Mhm.
everyone calm down. Like, this isn't even real. So, like, in your opinion, what's the deal with the people that aren't taking it more seriously?
You know, I consider myself an annoying optimist, and these people are taking it to a complete next level, right? You know, and so I think everyone's believing what's the most, I don't want to say comfortable, but the most sort of fitting for like who they are and their personality to believe, right? If you are a type A person, like an ultra type A person, you probably have, you know, you're probably sitting on a gold mine of toilet paper and milk and distilled water right now, right? And right, and if you're somebody who actually just believes like, yeah, man, it's all gonna be all right, we're gonna be fine, like let's go for a hike, it's gonna be great, take your time, then you probably are like telling everybody to chill out because you're chilled out, and like that makes complete sense. I think that's totally in times like this, whether it's you know, usually I hate to say, usually the worst of times really brings out character, the actual character. Like, we can always say that these are my values, this is what I believe, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, right? But when
Absolutely.
your back
Yep.
is pushed up against the wall, that's who you are. That person comes out then, right?
Yep. I
So
100%
you know,
agree.
yeah, so part of that is like, you know, some of these people like are probably like that all the time. You know, like when you're stressed out about like, you know, is that person going to call me back or whatever? This person's like, whatever, it'll work out. You know, so you know, I think that it's
Yeah.
just a lot of that stuff is like it's people like letting their personalities that have always been there sort of come out in this manifestation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, is it like everything that's truest about who you are just gets escalated and
sure,
accentuated with
sure.
something crazy like this?
Yeah, I think, you know, and I think too, and like to let the little bit of the optimist come out here too. I think that also comes out in times of like love as well, right? You know, if people have a lot of time, a lot of you know, you have it's an opportunity for all of us. Everything's an opportunity, right? So, you know, when you have a moment where you can, you know, be a good friend or be a good partner or be a good co-citizen with somebody, and that's who you actually are, those moments usually come out. Like they're really beautiful. And if you have moments of panic, you know, like your character's going to come out like then as well, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so let me ask you, why is the conversation, like, obviously, tonight we're talking a lot about mental health. Like, why do you think this conversation and attention to mental health is especially important during this time?
Right, because this is a completely different situation than anybody has ever been in this generation. You know, they're comparing it to, you know, the early 1900s, right? And
Hmm.
as far as I know, there aren't a whole lot of people around to give a real firsthand account about what happened in like the first part of the 20th century, right? So I
Yep.
think like this is when they say unprecedented, it's unprecedented in a lot of ways for sure, but there's also just like there's nobody around to sort of say this is how you do this. This is how you survive a pandemic. This is how you survive a global shutdown, right? And so I do think like, you know, the mental health thing about this is like humans love a couple of things. They really love control and they really love to predict things, right?
Mm.
And right now, everyone's feeling completely out of control. They can't go to work anymore. No one's taking care of their kid anymore. They don't know if they can go to the grocery store anymore, et cetera, et cetera. They can't go to their favorite bar on Friday night. Like nothing is under their control. And they can't predict anything. I don't know about you, but I get an update on my phone about every 12 seconds saying that like some huge thing has happened and like the policy is completely changed. What you thought was going to be is that's not what it's going to be anymore. And that's maddening for anybody, right? I mean, imagine if just your home life was like that, or just like your school was like that. Just imagine how like panicked you'd be if like, well, I thought they said school ended at 2. Now they're saying it ends at 1:45. Well, now they're saying it ends at 2:15. You know, now they're saying that there's no toilet paper in school, right? You'd lose it a little bit, right? You'd say, I don't know what I can count on anymore, right? And that's like how people become, you know, sort of secure is in their you know personhood in general, right? Securely attached to other people, but also securely attached to themselves. Is that they can have some kind of predictive knowing that, you know, caretaker will be there for me, right? School will be open, grocery store will have what I want. If I get hurt, the hospital will have a bed for me, right? We just know that, right? And it's
Sure.
you know, it's the ultimate sort of unthought about privilege, right? To sort of think like this is what we sort of have, right? And all of that is being taken away like hour by hour, it seems. So of course everyone is sort of, grabbing for anything that they can. What can I influence? Well, I can influence how much water I have in my house. I can influence how many supplies I have. I can influence like whatever these like little strands of things we can control and things that we can predict. Of course, like we're aiming for those, right?
Yeah. Can I ask you a question with what you said about, all of us have, like, this is bringing out the privilege that's innate kind of in our society. Like I never think about if I'm going to be able to find toilet paper at Target, and now this is like, where is the toilet paper? But do you think that that is leading to, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but leading to different responses between developed countries and underdeveloped countries?
Well, I don't know, but I would say this is that I hope that, again, silver lining, opportunity, right? Where is the opportunity here? Where do we learn? What do we get from this, right? If you're going to go through pain, right? If you're going to go through a terrible breakup or you're going to lose something or someone, hopefully you're getting something from that, right? Like hopefully that's making you a little smarter, a little tougher, just a little bit more self-aware, right? There's like something in there for you. And I think with all this too, hopefully not just individually, right? There's plenty of things we can all be doing, and I'm sure you and I will touch on that at some point tonight, like what we can all be doing individually. But to your point, Christine, I hope that there's something that we can be doing collectively, like as a nation, to sort of think about maybe we have an idea of how the other half lives right now, right? Not everybody can just like sort of go to Target, have same day delivery on Amazon to get a pack of jelly beans if they want to, right? Those days temporarily are done. And I think, not to sort of say that not to say that it's good, but I think that there can be good found and all of that sort of stuff too, right? So like, what can we learn from that?
Yeah. I was just thinking as you were talking, I was like, I haven't super heard about the coronavirus buzz from like third world countries. Right. And I wondered if it's because like they're not overreacting in the same ways that we are, because there's so many things that they already don't have access to. I feel like all the news about like crazy panic is like about developed countries for the most part.
Great point.
So
It's almost sort of like, it almost like a culture shock in a way. Like we're having another culture sort of put on us right now. We're all like, whoa, this is what it's like. And I'm sure that other people are, of course, concerned for their health and in other areas, but I'm sure that some of them are also sort of like, yeah, welcome to the party. This is what it's been like for us for a long time, not knowing if we're ever going to get medical care or not and whatnot,
Francis Wilson says he works with the US-China news and Iran gets left out of the conversation. So
interesting.
That's really interesting. So that is really interesting. Thanks for letting us know that, Francis. So can I ask you, like, what are trends that are popping up regarding mental health at this time?
I think the big one is, I don't know what to do with myself, right? It's like sort of like if work is, I can't go into work and I can't go to the gym and I can't go to, out to dinner or brunch or a bar with my friends. I'm not even supposed to go to my friends' houses probably, unless it's like a very small group and whatnot. I think like the big mental health thing is like, just what am I supposed to do with myself? Like I'm going bizarre. Yeah. We saw somebody today, our friend Bailey for a second, and she was like, this is my first actual real day of lockdown. She's like had things that she's had to do and she's been out every day. And she was like, I'm losing it. It's day one. It's like halfway through day one. I'm already losing it. So I think like that's the thing too. I think that people need to remember that, we don't know how long this is going to last. It might last a really long time. And to start to, even if you aren't happy about that, to start to get comfortable with that here, right? To start to understand like what that means, right? How long is a day? How long is a month? And like, what is that? Like, what would you typically do in that? So that's a lot of hours that you need to fill. Think about it. Like, what are you going to do with it otherwise? Because otherwise, these days are going to seem like weeks. Each day is going to seem like forever, right? But I think like getting on the front end of it now and sort of saying, look, there's only going to be more shutdowns. It's going to be harder before it gets easier, right? So let's be like really thoughtful about it. What do I want to do individually? What do I want to start something like Christina's starting and have some kind of community, organization and togetherness? So I just want to like start a virtual book club. Like what do I want to do, right? And I think like that kind of stuff is sort of like the big one. The other one is like what we talked about is that the predictability thing. A lot of people are talking to me about like, my work said they're going to pay for us for the next 2 weeks or to mid-April, but then they didn't say anything after that. And what I'm seeing is things are going to last into May, into June, maybe through the summer. I've seen some things the last 18 months. what am I supposed to do, right? And so I think that's like, there's also like that fear too, right? That people are sort of wondering like, what's next for me, and how in God's name do I prepare for that? And that just makes people obviously climb the walls, right?
Yeah, you already started kind of going into this, but someone asked, how do we mentally prepare for the long haul of this quarantine? And so I think what I heard you say is that we have to like essentially plan out the day a little bit, like look at the realistic amount of hours that we're dealing with daily. Do you have any other tips and tricks of how we do this for the long haul?
Yeah, definitely. Like one thing that I work with clients on a lot is something called like a project design from the future, right? So we'll take something that we want to say, like, where do you want to be at the end of April? Like, what if all of this happened? Like, what would you like to accomplish? Would you like to go on for, 30 runs if they're still letting us outdoors, right? Would you have liked to written a page a day of your novel that you've been putting off for a long time? Would you like to write to a new person? Like, what are some things you'd like to do by the end of this time? I'd like to be here, right? So I think, a lot of times we think about like, how do I get through the next hour? How do I get through the next day? But I think if you put yourself at the end of it and work your way back, right? And you sort of say, well, then by the third week in April, I should be here. Like the second week, I should be there. And like by the beginning of April, I should be here. And so this is what I should do today to make sure that this week happens. And I think that a lot of times we think about a lot of things in front of us because the world is so fast now, as a sprint. And this is really not a sprint. This is going to feel more like a marathon, right? So planning far ahead, and thinking about like what it is like where you actually want to be at a later date. A lot of us have had to like write a thesis or do some kind of like, have some kind of like practice an instrument and see some kind of, how am I going to get to that finish line? How am I going to learn this piece of music? How am I going to like have a 100-page paper due? And I think if you think about the 100-page paper, or you think about, the huge, piece of music that you're unfamiliar with, then obviously that's going to be really daunting, right? And you're not going to want to do that at all in the first place. But if you can think about where you want to be at the end, where you need to be there, where you need to be there, and you think about today as being page 1 to get me to page 7 eventually, at the end of the week, it becomes a lot easier mentally to swallow, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can I ask you, what advice would you give to the kind of people that aren't good at planning or are just like very type B? They're like, I can't, I'm a procrastinator. I don't make long-term plans well. What would you say to them? Yeah.
Then like, this is a fantastic, we all have friends who are planners and we're all socially isolated right now. You get on the phone, you get on video, get on FaceTime or Skype or something with a friend. And we all have our type A friends. We all have our planner friends. This is a fantastic time to ask them, like, this is what I want to do. This is how I'm feeling. How do I get from here to here, right? By all means, like, this is like a great time for community, right? You don't have to do this on your own. I recommend that you don't, right? A lot of the best things in the world, like, were created in groups, like Lennon and McCartney, right? Like, thank God for that. So think about like who's around you, who you believe in, like who you like know to already have these sort of, Chris Farrah is my type B friend. Chris Farrah and I will probably talk on the phone either tonight or in the morning.
That's so funny.
And we will come up with a plan, but guess what? This girl gets shit done. So follow Chris Farrah if you want to be entertained on all things comedy, music, fashion, talking about like what's happening in reality TV. She's a type B friend, but she gets it done. But I think that for a lot of people, they are freaking out because you're right, they're procrastinators by nature. And as you said earlier, these situations have all of who we are coming out in droves, right? So if you're a procrastinator, you're probably going to ultra procrastinate now, and then you get in a deeper ditch. So my mission to anybody who's listening right now is, right now, pull out a piece of paper, or your phone, but that'll probably make us go away, and then write down like three names of people who who are usually on top of it. They're usually one step ahead, right? And shoot them a text tonight. Shoot them a text in the morning and say, hey, I have some ideas of like what I want to do during this wild coronavirus lockdown, right? And partner with them. And I'm sure that they would love to get a phone call from somebody because they're probably on lockdown too, so you're doing them a favor. And I think everybody really likes the feeling of helping somebody else. It really makes people feel like really, really good to sort of say, I have a skill, I've got something that's being valued by a friend. Right?
That's so good. Hey, Brooke, I'm looking at you. My 3 people, Brooke, and Brooke. Got it.
Got it. I adore you, Chris Farrah.
That was really helpful. Can I ask you, okay, let's take it. This was actually Brooke's question. So she says, I hear from a lot of people that they feel out of control during this time, whether that's not being able to find toilet paper, markets dropping, not being able to leave home. So like, how would you respond to those who feel out of control? Because I think you already started going down that road a bit of like, this is a trend that a lot of people are feeling, but like, I'm sure all of us know somebody that's like, that's their mindset. Like, so how would you respond to them so that we can all learn how should we respond to them as they're feeling super out of control? Or maybe they're the person that feels out of control. I don't know.
I feel like my entire 30 minutes with you so far has been really optimistic and whatnot. I think this is where we have to tough love our friends and remind them that this idea of having had control this whole time has kind of been a little bit of a myth. Like it's not actually true, right? And we have like, there's a lot of things around us that have made it really easy for us to feel like we have control. But somebody gets sick somewhere and far away, and somebody gets on a plane, somebody else gets on a plane, and all of a sudden, you know, there's no, you know, toilet paper or peanut butter at Whole Foods, right? Like it's like that, right? So the control you thought you had, no offense, that you didn't have. And I think that again, this is a fantastic time to have this be a lesson, right? That we have over a lot of things in our life, we have a lot of influence, especially like our own individual life. We have a lot of influence, but we really don't have control. You know, I'm working with a client right now who was training for the Paris Marathon, which of course sadly got canceled. But she was running and she was like upping her miles and doing really, really well. And then she's like, "This is the one thing I have control over." I'm like, "Yeah, go get it. You're killing it, girl. Fantastic." And of course, the next week later, she hurts her hip and can't even walk. Right? She's like had a bad step, and she was like, "What a lesson!" And like the thing that I think I can really control, right? I don't even have control over that. And it actually was helpful for her to sort of be, you know, sort of, I think humbled in that way, to sort of say, nothing's under my control. So trying to think about things as far as like, what can I influence? And again, so to kind of get power back to Brooke's question is like, how would we calm them down? What are the things I can influence the most? I can influence my time. I can influence what I do with it. I can influence who I contact. I can influence how much time I spend on, you know, watching the news and letting it rile me up more. I can control, like my mindset, frankly. We can't necessarily control our feelings or our emotional response immediately to something, but we can control how we react to those, or if we choose to believe those things, right? So you can control your mindset in that way and sort of say, okay, I feel panicked, I feel trapped, and this is an opportunity to clean that closet, or this is an opportunity to do another 25 push-ups like I said I was going to do today, or this is an opportunity to reach out to a friend like Christine or whatnot and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a long time, and I miss you, and I love you, and I would like to say hi, and let's keep each other company for an hour, right? These are a lot of things you actually can control. So try to have as much concentration on like the insular part of it, and not focus too much on how other people are behaving, what the government does, and any of that sort of stuff that like you really don't have control over. Because the more you focus on that, the more this is going to be a torturous period for you, you know?
That's really good. It's really helpful. I'm talking to a freaking genius, guys. What's up? So let me ask you, when it comes to like, I'm an introvert. Like I took that test on the internet, like 16 personalities, and it's like I'm 94% like introversion to extroversion. But like, do you see like people are different things arising in people like dependent on their personality? Like we already talked about like the stuff that who you really are is going to come out in these pressure moments. But like, do you see different things coming out of introverts versus extroverts in this like group panic, pandemic, a little situation?
I mean, I think the extroverts who are feeling like they're really upset that they can't go out are having a really hard time, right? But the extroverts who are like being a little creative about this and saying, okay, like my friend Jess Harding is an extrovert, and she's a hard worker during the week, but like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, she lives in New York. She is out and she's losing it. So like, what did we do? we had a little happy hour like yesterday afternoon with her and her partner in her apartment, and you could tell she was thriving, right? You know, she was being creative with it, right? And so I think like, you know, even if you're an introvert, you might already be like, I've been planning for this my entire life, right? Like I'm completely fine. But like if you're an extrovert, like it probably is kind of hard for you. Just like use that sort of like be creative, right? I mean, you know, like I said, like connect with people, throw online parties. There was like a huge, party last night, like where that, famous DJ, there was like, tens of thousands of people were there dancing with him, and it was like Liz Warren, and like everybody was like there, like, showed up at this DJ party. Crazy, right? It's
Yeah.
like, let the things that who you already were sort of work for you here instead of sort of hold you back, right? Connect with people. And so, I think the introverts are doing okay. It's like the extroverts who like need to sort of just like do what you would normally do, just figure out how to do it, sort of how to do it online. And again, opportunity, Christine, right? This is all an opportunity.
I love the way you put that. Let who you are work for you instead of, get your way. That's really good. Okay, so this is like a lot of people have asked these sort of questions, and so I personally deal with depression, and I know that it's not as severe as some of my other friends, but what would you say to someone who has depression or is dealing with suicidal thoughts and was already feeling isolated before this? Because I think one of the things that I'm really recognizing in my life is like I have an incredible community, so even on my darkest days, like I'm never like left alone, even when I'm just choosing to be alone in my house. But what would you say to people who are already feeling isolated, and now there's limited access to mental health care, or at least it has to look really different? And I know sometimes motivation's a really hard thing of like getting up to call and to figure out how to set up online counseling. So what would you say to people that are dealing with that?
To answer your last question first, there's a fantastic online service. It's actually just an app that takes maybe 10 minutes to sign up for, but probably more like 5. And so maybe you can share this with your followers after this. It's called Doctor on Demand. And it's a blue box app, and it says DR in it. And it does both psychiatry and counseling, psychology. And it takes almost every insurance. So I think the copay is around $25, $30, so not too bad, right? And you'll see somebody in your state. And so you can see people as often as once a week if you want to, or people like less, more infrequently, kind of like sort of touch base. So I would recommend that for people as far as like feeling like if they can't get to their therapist, or if their therapist is not necessarily doing a lot of telehealth right now, definitely use that. My experience with that company has been just 100%. They're fantastic.
That's a really helpful resource.
The other thing is too is like a lot of us know this is a time for like not just for people to sort of like be creative and start doing new things, but start thinking about who you already know in your community, right? And a lot of us know a lot when some of our friends are have issues with depression or are feeling like isolated or whatnot, or not, or what their mental histories are. And so I think that this is an opportunity for like people to reach out to those friends. So I don't want to put all the onus on the person who has felt sort of necessarily depressed, but on the community of those people, right? Who needs you, like which friends of yours have a harder time with life in general, or the past in general. And so you can imagine that like what a time like this might be having these people think. So I would encourage people to sort of like reach out to them and like just sort of say, hey, I'm here for you. Want to give me a call? Like, want to do like a virtual dance party? Chris Farrer and I are doing a virtual dance party, hopefully in the next 24 hours or whatnot. Because like we both like need our spirits lifted, and we want to like move around with our friends. And I think like that kind of stuff is what they can do. To answer your real question of like what should this person do, everything that you were doing before that was working for you, try to make that work for you now. Like I personally love my gratitude journal. Like I write in it, like, and I've done it more now than ever. I did fall off of it for a little bit, totally honest. But like I write like 3 good things in a day. We've been meditating before starting our days, first thing in the morning, sometimes before bed. The things if physical activity is the thing that's important for you, make sure you're doing that in the house. Like make sure that like no matter what you were doing before, taking the meds, if you're prescribed meds, and doing all the things that you were doing, and not letting this sort of like knock you off your path, because a lot of people may have a past of depression, but that, as you know, that does not define you. No one characteristic sort of defines you. So make sure that you're doing all the things sort of around that to support your overall mental health, and don't let any of that sort of drop off, and reach out to friends as often as possible. But I know that's hard sometimes. Yeah.
That's good. That's helpful. Somebody had like an addition to that question and specifically mentioned alcoholism. Like, what would you say for somebody who deals with alcoholism or any type of like addiction, in this time where you have so much time by yourself in your home, and
Yeah.
And I know it's easy to fall back into addictive patterns when you're feeling lonely and you feel
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to get this out.
Yeah.
And the bottle's
Um,
right there, or whatever is right there.
yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, I think for people who are in recovery, it's a much trickier situation, right? This is something where it's, I think, like number one rule is, whoever you believe in, like whoever has your back, call your sponsor, call your parent, call your best friend, call whoever it is, right? And make sure that you are in contact with as many positive sources as possible. If you're not in recovery, and like this is a time where you have availability to a lot of other things, it's probably not the best time to try to make a huge sort of change there without the help of professionals. I would encourage calling, like, if you feel like it's upping because of all this, and you feel like your symptoms are going up and your drinking or your using is going up. I would suggest then calling a local hospital or clinic and asking, hey, I know all this stuff is going on. Are you taking people, with these kinds of needs, or would I just sort of be like, sort of clogging up the system? And if I can't come to you, where should I go? Because the people who work in hospitals or clinics like that can be the best resource, or to sort of send you where you need to go. I don't think that this is a time that anybody wants to be alone, but when your go-to habit has been to use in the past, right now, I think if you are in recovery, do all the things you were doing, but like threefold, right? Reaching out to other people. And if you're having a hard time where like all your stuff is upping, then go get some exterior help for sure.
Yeah.
Don't try to white knuckle this.
Yeah, that's good. Dr. Scott says that AA meetings are happening online and that Pink
Great.
Cloud Finder is a good app to find recovery meetings in your area. Thanks, Dr. Scott. That's
Thank you,
helpful.
Dr. Scott. You rock.
You do rock. I really appreciate though, like all the resources that are being shared in this conversation of like apps. I've never heard of any of these apps. It's
well,
good.
gratitude journal. Oh,
Hello?
I cut out for a second. Am I back?
Oh, no, it's all good. Can you tell us, like, what are some good coping mechanisms you would suggest for people dealing with anxiety, or things that are good to just practice at this time, even if you don't have anxiety? Because I know that I've heard that, like, people that, are really dealing with that, and then people just in general, because of the groupthink and everyone's panicking, I think everyone feels a little bit anxious during this time.
Sure. Yeah. Again, like I want you to find a mix of things that like you've always wanted to do and the things that that you like, right? So if you like know that like the little spinner works well for you, then like double down on your spinner, you can do it two-handed, right? If you think that if like you've always thought that like like drawing or painting or something like that creative would always be good for you, but you haven't had the time or whatnot, what a fantastic time to start doing that. Take an art class online. There's plenty of things that are actual like proper online classes, but also like YouTube and things like that. Whatever it is. So I think like the anxiety comes from the not knowing, and a lot of times it comes from the fear of having to decide, right? And saying if I do this, then that, right? Remind yourself that right now, what you have right now, Christine, is all the time in the freaking world, don't you? It's all the time in the world, right?
Yeah,
so you can
true.
say, I'm gonna try painting at noon, and if you hated it, I thought I was gonna love that for 5 years, and now I've done it, I hate it, then pull out your keyboard at 5 p.m. Try something else, right? You have all the time in the world to sort of to do these things, right? So I think like kind of and then of course like there are obviously like things that people like know that they love to do that maybe they haven't been making time for all the way along, right? 'Cause it's like work in the way, or all these places I've got to be, and now there's not a lot of work and no place to be, right? So again, it makes like actually see that as not what's being taken away from me. What has this made possible for me, right?
Yeah.
This has made possible a lot of things. I want to be a journaler. I want to be a meditator. I want to be a person who does yoga. I want to be somebody who does push-ups every day. I want to be somebody who actually is in touch with like their friends all the time. This is your moment. You have time for all that now.
That's great perspective. This is a really funny question. I'm just gonna read it how it was written. Being home with people all day, every day is a lot. What can we do to ensure that we communicate well as family or friends in a little space during this time so we don't all hate each other in the end?
Yeah, good note. Well, this is not my little tidbit. This is something I've borrowed from Dr. Sue Johnson, who, if you all are looking for some cool reading material, Sue Johnson is a counseling psychologist in Canada. and she works a lot with like couples, but really like relationally sort of in general. And she always says that, if you're going to say something to somebody, obviously if you're going to talk with somebody, you're going to talk, and eventually, right, you're going to have a little bit of like, butting of the heads, or at least something that you want to communicate that's not going to go over like lollipops and rainbows, right? So the best thing to do is to sort of say, A, tell them, it's not like the easiest thing for me to say, and B, tell them why you're bringing it up in the first place. And usually 9 times out of 10, the reason you bring it up in the first place is because you don't want to fight, not because you do want to fight, right? It's because you want them to know you a little bit better. You want to be a little bit closer. You want to understand them more, and you want to be more understood. And what is love if it's not understanding people more and getting closer in that way? If that's not love, I don't know what is, right? So I think like using that opportunity to sort of say, hey, I know we've been literally walking all over each other for days. I want to just bring this one thing up to you because I love you. And it has been difficult for me to bring it up. And so here's what it is. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I want to live in harmony with you, not because I want to fight with you, right? And I think if you can kind of preface it all with like, here's my reasoning for it, and I'm not trying to start World War III in a house that we can't get out of, right? I'm actually trying to make things more smoothly, right? Then like usually people can hear that pretty well.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I think we're about to wrap up. So if anybody in here has questions that they want to ask the brilliant Dr. Michael, please put them in now. And I'm going to ask my fun question. What are the top 3 movies or shows you would recommend for quarantine time?
Oh my gosh. Number 1 show, especially because so much of it happens behind a door, and so there's no germs being shared between the 2 potential lovers, is the show Love is Blind on Netflix. If you are quarantined and you have nowhere to be, I don't know how you wouldn't finish this in 3 days. Like, it's like we don't watch TV at all, and like we're tearing through this thing. It's so good. I loved it. I love Love is Blind. It's so good.
Scott recommended that yesterday, so I went back and I started, like, I had watched a couple episodes and then I went back last night, and I like, guys, I love Jesus, but Jessica is a trash bag on that show. That's all.
She's
like
she is like
I can't.
Okay, I love people, right? I love people. I love my job. I want to work with people. And she like really tests your spirit, doesn't she? She tests you.
I just was like, you're in your mid-30s. Like, what are you doing with your life right now?
Christine, you're the pastor. I'm not. Some people I think are on this planet. Everyone's on this planet for a reason. I think her plan is to test the rest of us, right? Like, just how much can we put up with and still, keep our friendly character about us. Yeah, she's horrible. What else would I recommend watching? Maybe shows about people being cooped up. I think Scott brought this up yesterday. I'm sorry, but like shows about being cooped up where they have a lot of fun. So for $4 a month, $5 a month, you can have CBS All Access, and it's access to like every show they've ever made, right? And including Big Brother from like series 1 through like 22 or something like that. Like, there are a lot in, and so my friend Patrick Othaup is a Big Brother fan, and he recommended a season 14, which is from the year 2012. And I will tell you right now, we're halfway through, maybe a little more, and riveted. I'm going to be like, bye, Christine, and go like watch another episode right now. It's so good because they're all quarantined, kind of like they're all like together, and they're making the most of it. So
you're pretty much just theming your shows, but based on your experience right now.
I mean, it's getting me through. Like, like, am I gonna like act like like I gotta like make up something else? Like, I'm not gonna like tell you some like. Oh yeah, maybe I should give you some like really. What else? What's something that would be like really useful?
No, I just love that all the shows like, well, this is because they're quarantined, and this show I like because it looks like they're quarantined.
Yeah, totally. But it's fun, right? I think that's the thing too. It's like, I'm not gonna recommend like Contagion, and watch Gwyneth Paltrow scream her face off for an hour and a half. I mean, like, that's horrible.
Fair. Okay.
I love Gwyneth, but I'm not gonna do that. Yeah. What else would I say? Honestly, this is such a cop-out answer, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Watch your favorite movie from like when you were a kid. I think that's a good idea. Like, I plan on watching a bunch of them. Like, I loved like rookie of the year because I was a sports fan, or like, you know, even like my mom was, you know, very much into letting us see everything. It's like I loved watching The Birdcage when I was a kid. It was like watch like whatever things made you or Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, right?
Oh
Watch
my
whatever you
gosh.
watched when you were a kid, and like let that just like take you out, like, you know,
That's a
completely
great
back to
idea.
where you were young and didn't know anything and carefree, you know.
That's such a great idea. Well, Dr. Michael, it's been a pleasure. Brooke, I'm not going to let Jessica be my guest. I can't. I can't do it. Uh, no. But I have loved getting to talk with you. I've learned so much. And
Me too.
I can't wait to hang out with you the next time I'm in Denver.
Likewise. Like, thank you, Edmundo. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you for having me, and I hope that people got something out of this, and I will hopefully see you IRL whenever we're allowed to be IRL, whenever the government allows
I
it.
know, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Gift's got a big hug for me.
I will talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.